A young tennis player walks into one of the biggest tournaments in the world, and suddenly an entire nation seems to stand behind her. But what does that really mean for an athlete who is still building her career? Is it purely a celebration of talent, or does it quietly carry the weight of expectation? That question is becoming more relevant as Filipino tennis star Alex Eala prepares for another appearance at Indian Wells Open. In recent days, fans across the Philippines and even in tennis communities abroad have been celebrating her online, calling her the face of the Philippines in international tennis. The phrase has appeared repeatedly across social media posts, sports pages, and fan discussions. But behind that phrase lies something deeper than just excitement about a tournament entry. It reflects the growing story of a young athlete whose rise has started to represent more than individual success. Before looking at what that means, it helps to briefly understand what brought us to this moment. Alex Eala has been building her reputation steadily over the past few years. She first gained attention as a junior standout, becoming one of the most successful Filipino players in junior Grand Slam history. Training at the prestigious Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain, she developed her game under a system known for producing disciplined and mentally resilient players. Her junior achievements, including winning a Grand Slam doubles title and later a singles title, made headlines in the Philippines. For a country where tennis has historically struggled to produce global stars, those victories carried symbolic importance. But the transition from junior success to professional tennis is never simple. Professional tournaments bring a different level of competition, a different pace, and a different psychological challenge. And now, as she prepares to compete in Indian Wells, one of the most prestigious tournaments outside the 4 Grand Slams, the attention surrounding her is noticeably growing. Indian Wells, often referred to as the 5th Grand Slam, draws the biggest names in tennis every year. Players like Iga Swiatek, Aryna Sabalenka, and Coco Gauff typically headline the event. For a young player like Alex Eala, simply being part of that environment is already significant. But the fan reaction in the Philippines suggests something even bigger is happening. Many supporters are not just celebrating her participation. They are celebrating what she represents. Across Filipino social media platforms, fans have been sharing messages of pride and encouragement. Posts describe her as a national inspiration, a new chapter in Philippine tennis, and even a symbol of possibility for young athletes across Southeast Asia. Calling someone the face of the Philippines is powerful language. It signals that people see her not just as a player, but as a figure who represents national identity in global sport. And while that kind of recognition can be uplifting, it also raises an important question. How much pressure should a young athlete carry? In modern sports culture, the line between admiration and expectation can become very thin. When fans celebrate a player's potential, they often unintentionally create a narrative where success is assumed rather than hoped for. For someone like Alex Eala, that can mean every match becomes more than just a match. It becomes a reflection of national pride. Sports history is full of athletes who experienced this dynamic early in their careers. Young stars often find themselves in a situation where they are both developing their skills and representing something larger at the same time. In some cases, that pressure becomes motivation. In others, it can become overwhelming. And that is why conversations about athlete mental health and media exposure have become increasingly important in recent years. Professional tennis, in particular, has had several moments that forced the sports world to rethink how players are treated in the public eye. High-profile athletes like Naomi Osaka have openly spoken about the emotional toll of constant media scrutiny. Her decision to step back from certain press obligations in order to protect her mental health sparked a global debate about the responsibilities athletes carry beyond the court. That discussion changed how many fans view rising stars today. People are beginning to understand that talent alone does not protect athletes from psychological pressure. In fact, the more visible a player becomes, the more complicated their experience can be. And visibility in modern sports is amplified by one major factor: social media. 2 decades ago, a young tennis player's exposure was mostly limited to sports coverage and television broadcasts. Today, the relationship between athletes and fans happens constantly through platforms like Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. Every practice photo, every training video, every comment from fans becomes part of the public narrative. For someone like Alex Eala, this means her journey is unfolding not just on the tennis court but across a global digital stage. Supporters celebrate her wins in real time. They analyze her performance. They speculate about her future. And sometimes they project their own hopes onto her career. In many ways, this digital attention is positive. It builds a community around athletes. It allows fans from the Philippines, Europe, the United States, and other regions to connect through shared excitement. It also helps young players grow their brand and attract sponsorship opportunities. But social media attention also creates a challenge that previous generations of athletes rarely faced. There is almost no separation between public performance and private life. Athletes today must learn how to manage not only training, competition, and travel, but also constant public visibility. This raises another question worth thinking about. How much access should fans expect from athletes? Many sports supporters feel a personal connection to players they admire. They follow their journeys for years. They celebrate victories and share in disappointments. But athletes are still individuals who need space to develop both professionally and personally. The challenge is finding a balance between engagement and privacy. For rising stars like Alex Eala, that balance is especially important. At 18 or 19 years old, most young people are still discovering who they are. They are exploring interests, making mistakes, and growing through experience. Professional athletes, however, often go through that stage under public observation. Every decision can become a story. Every performance can be judged instantly. And when national pride becomes attached to a player's journey, the emotional stakes grow even higher. That is part of why the current celebration of Alex Eala in the Philippines is both inspiring and complex. On one hand, it reflects genuine pride. For many Filipino sports fans, seeing a homegrown tennis player competing internationally represents progress for a sport that has long lived in the shadow of basketball and boxing in the country. Athletes like Manny Pacquiao once carried the hopes of an entire nation in boxing. Now, younger athletes are beginning to represent the Philippines in new global arenas. Alex Eala's rise suggests that tennis could become one of those arenas. Young Filipino players watching her matches might begin to imagine their own paths into professional sports. That cultural impact is meaningful. Representation matters in athletics. When young athletes see someone from their country competing at the highest levels, it expands what they believe is possible. But at the same time, it is important to remember that sports careers unfold over years, not moments. Indian Wells is just one tournament in a long journey. Success in professional tennis often requires patience. Players spend seasons learning how to handle travel schedules, different playing surfaces, and the intense physical demands of the tour. They also face the reality that progress is rarely linear. Even the world's best players experience setbacks early in their careers. For Alex Eala, the key challenge will be navigating that development process while carrying increasing attention from fans and media. And that brings us back to the phrase many supporters are using right now. Face of the Philippines. It is a powerful compliment. But it is also a reminder of how quickly narratives form around young athletes. Sports culture often loves the idea of a single representative figure. A player who symbolizes national pride. A star who embodies the dreams of fans. Yet the healthiest environment for athletes is often one where they are allowed to grow without being defined entirely by expectation. That means celebrating achievements while still allowing room for learning. It means supporting athletes through difficult matches as well as victories. And perhaps most importantly, it means remembering that players are human beings first. In many ways, the story of Alex Eala at Indian Wells is not just about tennis. It is about how modern sports culture treats rising talent. It is about how nations celebrate young athletes. And it is about how digital media shapes the narrative around success. Fans today are not just spectators. They are participants in the conversation. Every tweet, comment, and post contributes to the atmosphere surrounding a player. That collective energy can be uplifting. But it also carries responsibility. Encouragement matters. Patience matters. Perspective matters. As Alex Eala prepares to step onto the courts at Indian Wells, the excitement surrounding her is understandable. She represents a new generation of Filipino athletes stepping confidently onto the global stage. But her journey is still unfolding. The most meaningful support fans can offer is not simply declaring her the future of Philippine tennis. It is allowing her the time and space to become whatever kind of player her talent and dedication lead her to become. Because in the end, the true measure of a sports career is not how quickly someone becomes a symbol. It is how sustainably they grow as an athlete and as a person. And that perspective might be the most valuable lesson in this entire story. Alex Eala's rise reminds us that sports are not just about trophies or rankings. They are about the journeys of individuals navigating ambition, expectation, and identity in a very public arena. Whether she wins or loses at Indian Wells, the conversation surrounding her highlights something larger happening in modern athletics. Fans are more connected to players than ever before. Athletes are more visible than ever before. And the relationship between the two continues to evolve. In that sense, the celebration of Alex Eala is not just about one tournament or one player. It reflects a moment when a young athlete becomes a symbol of possibility. But the most meaningful stories in sports rarely come from symbols alone. They come from the human journey behind them. And that journey is still only beginning.